everyone. Happy Wednesday. Hope you all are doing great and having a fabulous day so far. I am super excited for our guest today, and she will be joining us in a moment. But yes, anyways, I hope everything's going well for you all and that your week is going great. In Seattle, it's currently cloudy, which kind of sucks, but it's all good. I will get our guest on the stage in just a bit. How do I do that? Hi! Sorry.
Hello.
I was like, I'm holding my phone because my phone is charging. But yeah, I was like, how do I get Devin on the stage? Anyways, how are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
Doing good. Happy Wednesday. Hope your day's off to a great start. I know you're like East Coast time, so it's already like lunchtime.
Yeah, I feel like the morning went really fast though, so it still feels like morning time to me. But yeah, how's it going over there?
It's good. I was just like talking to myself saying that it was very cloudy and that it's like in the mornings it's dropped to I think like 30-ish degrees. So quite a bit of a change. But
My gosh,
how's it over there
that's
in
very
Jersey?
chilly. Good. It's starting to cool off, and by that I mean it's not high 80s and 100% humidity. It's like in the 60s now. So it's a little balmy, if you will. But yeah, it's nice. It's starting to feel like fall, which I love. It's a fleeting season, so making the most of it while it's here.
That's so true. That's actually a good way to put it. Like fall is definitely one of those seasons where it like goes really quickly and you're like, what the heck happened?
Yeah, it's such a small period of time where the leaves are still in the trees, but they're colorful before they fall off
Off.
the branches. And there's a crew of folks who are always interested in fall sessions. And I feel like the peak time shifts from year to year. So we always make our best guesses, and it usually always turns out, but it's one of the prettiest times, I think, over in this part of the country. So, and I love the pumpkin spice lattes and pumpkin beers that come out for like a month or so, and get my hands on those while I can. But then we get
Yes.
into the winter season, which has a whole other batch of fun stuff. So,
I know every season kind of has their like signature drink or signature event that you do. So fall is definitely like pumpkin season or like apple picking or playing in the leaves, I guess.
yeah, apple picking is a big one. I haven't actually really ever gone apple picking, but it sounds like fun. There's
Devin,
a
you're
lot of
missing out.
I know. I need to make the time. My weekends in the fall just really don't work out for it. But I love hopping up to like upstate New York and doing cideries though. Like that's a fun fall thing.
Ooh.
So
That's awesome. Well,
yeah.
speaking of your busy schedule, anyways, I'm really excited to introduce you as my guest for episode nine, eight.
That's
But thank you.
incredible. 8 episodes already.
Thank you. It's been quite a journey, lots of learnings, but I'm really thankful to connect and have great relationships and friendships with, entrepreneurs like you and just getting your story out and talking about, who you are, what you do, why you do. And yeah, I'm just super stoked for everyone to introduce you to everyone and for your followers as well to learn a little bit more about you because I'm sure they go with you throughout their process of, anything that they need to get photographed, but they don't really get to know like who you are as a person, or maybe they do on a more intimate level, just depending on what type of event you're doing. Um, but for people who don't know who you are, do you want to give a brief intro about your business?
Yes, would love to. But first, I just want to thank you for inviting me onto your podcast series here. It's been so incredible to watch your business grow and you go after your small business dreams and just grow like crazy over such a short amount of time, and have all these cool projects that live under the Live Long and Plant brand. So I'm so
Oh.
excited to be here and just want to thank you for having me. Uh, but yeah, sure. So I am Devin McGurgan. I am owner and lead photographer at a wedding photography company called Mile Square Moments. And just to explain my business name, I named Mile Square Moments after the Mile Square City, which is Hoboken, New Jersey. Hoboken is 1 square mile in size with 52,000 people living here. So
Wow.
countless amounts of stories to tell. The demographic is generally like younger professional, 20s to like 40s, I would say. So it's a really hot wedding market, as well as the surrounding area, New York City and Jersey itself. So it's just been an honor to be invited into other love stories to capture them for folks who, met, fell in love, and are living their love stories out here. Hoboken's where I met my husband, where we got engaged, and where we continue to live our lives. So being able to share that and relate to other couples has been so special in a city that means so much to me and us. So a little bit about the background of the biz, but as far as myself, I grew up in central Pennsylvania, so a super small town. I moved to the big city here about almost 8 years ago, which is a lifetime in Hoboken talk, I like to say, because it's a very transient place. People come and go and don't really stick around for too long. So I've definitely said I'm on the longer end of my residence here, I'll say. But I really can't imagine myself being anywhere else because of the business that I've built here, how much it means to me. And Hoboken's sort of like a little neighborhood in a big city. I see people I know all the time out and about. And a lot of my clients like live right around where I live. So we're neighbors sometimes. So it's pretty cool. We cross each other at, a workout sometimes, the grocery store, the sidewalk, restaurants. So it's a small town feel, which I love because it reminds me of home, but in, the greater New York City area. But yeah, a little bit about me and how Miles Square Moments, is named and what it means, but I can get into like
Yeah.
anything else you're interested in.
Oh, no, I first off didn't know anything about Hoboken. So thank you for sharing that. Literally the only thing I knew is like Cake Boss, but I think everyone knows that through Hoboken.
It's a very like
Um,
touristy thing about the town that if you live here, you're kind of like,
yeah, I can imagine. That's like in Hawaii with like Waikiki. Everyone goes there and you're like, yeah, don't go there ever.
Yeah,
Uh,
I bet. I can imagine.
Yeah, but thank you for the kind words first off in the beginning. I really appreciate that. Secondly, I didn't know Hoboken was only a mile square, like in size, a square mile, and vice versa. And
Hmm.
so, but it sounds really dense. But at the same time, I think that's why your business is so prosperous, is because like you've ingrained yourself in the city, and like the city has kind of like welcomed you with open arms. And that's why you were voted 2020 best photographer of the year, right?
Yeah, that was a great way to cap off 2020, the roller coaster of a year that was. But yeah, there's a lot of pride here in Hoboken, and the folks who live here generally like tend to love it. And there's such a community feel to the town, and yeah, huge small business scene, which I love. And every year, Hoboken Girl, which is the blog of the town that everybody sort of turns to for latest restaurant openings, business news, local news. They do Hoboken Year of the War, Hoboken Awards of the Year for different small businesses in different categories, and yeah, it's all write-ins from people who live here. So to be nominated was such a honor, and I was surprised. I didn't even know it was happening, and then when I was nominated, and then the final three sort of came into the mix, I had just a ton of people like texting me and calling me that morning, like, "Oh my gosh, did you see it? Congrats, congrats!" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And then I could not believe it. It was honestly humbling. And then a lot of my past couples and clients and current couples and clients reached out, like, "I voted for you, I voted for you," and it
Oh,
was really a neat way to see how it all sort of ties back together. And my relationships with my clients aren't really just like one and done. It
mhm,
sort of carries through time and the relationships last, and it's so special. Especially when you're a part of such a big day and a big milestone in
mhm.
a couple's lives, and you share that with them, you come alongside them, you cry with them, you laugh with them. It's emotional, but it's so special, and I wouldn't trade it. So
That's
yeah.
amazing. I always wanted to know, how did you get started in photography? Like, is it something that you grew up wanting to do, or is it something that you kind of just picked up and were really passionate about?
Great question. It's funny when I think about my life now and think back to being, a teenager in college and what I thought my life would look like. And like wedding photographer wasn't really ever on the list. But I always had a camera in my hand and I was always taking pictures. Back in the digital camera days, I
Yep.
had my little like, Canon or Nikon point and
Yeah.
shoot and would make those like crazy Facebook albums with like the hundreds of
Oh,
photos, document everything. And
yep.
used to put the horrible Instagram filters on every like Starbucks latte I would drink.
Yes.
um, so then I went to Penn State and I showed up thinking that I thought I knew what I wanted to do and very quickly realized that was not for me and took a semester to really explore what I was good at and what really lit me up and what I had a passion for. And I ended up being a photojournalism major in the College of Communications at Penn State. And that's where I picked up my first like real Nikon DSLR, took my first photography course, learned all about how to actually operate the camera. Something that was really cool about that class is I had 24/7 access to the photo editing lab. There, like my ID card would swipe me in and I could go there any time of day or night and just work on projects. I could work on school assigned projects or I could work on personal projects. And it was sort of like my happy place because it was a really small little lab, I think maybe 15 max in
Mhm.
there, and would just go and just get lost in assignments. And I remember some of the assignments were super high stress, but
Mm.
really I sort of thrive in that kind of environment where it's like, okay, you have the next 45 minutes to interview X people and capture Y images and come back, tell a story, and submit it before you leave.
Mhm.
So it was good practice to sort of learn the art of storytelling and the
Oh.
pieces that you need to tell a story
Mhm.
in the right way and always gather the information and the right types of imagery to do the story justice. So all of
Mhm.
that to say, brought that into my postgraduate life. And I will say that it was a rude awakening when I realized that I could rent any piece of equipment I wanted. Like I would sign it out for free and bring it
Oh
with
yeah.
me from the Penn State like equipment warehouse.
Mhm.
And then when all that was gone and I had to start like buying my own gear, I'm like, oh my gosh, this stuff is expensive.
Yeah.
So I would like save up. I remember saving up to buy my first Nikon DSLR coming out of Penn State. And then once I got my hands on that thing, I was always taking pictures, just continuing to photograph. And then I got a job out of college, and my coworkers knew that I took pictures, and I had my first paid gig was my coworkers like baby's baptism, like at this church in the Upper West Side. And I remember thinking to myself, like, are you sure you want to pay me to do this? Like, I don't know. I think it was like a $200 gig, like something
Yeah.
really low stakes.
Uh-huh.
But it seemed huge at the time, right?
Mhm.
So I'll never forget that. And then from there, I had another coworker ask me to take her engagement photos. And again, it was my first engagement session, my first Hoboken engagement session. And I had that same like imposter syndrome feeling like, are you
Mm.
sure you want me to do this? And I remember spending so much time like mapping out where we were going to go and how long we were going to spend and what the light was going to be like and just wanting it to go perfectly. And in the moment, I felt like that shoot went amazing. And it did, right? Like they were so happy with the photos, but that was in 2016. So
Okay.
thinking about like looking at those photos now, I'm like, oh my gosh, like they're so not what I would ever give to anybody now. But it
Mhm.
takes time to
Yeah.
establish your style and your aesthetic and kind of what you're going for. And I really sort of floundered in that in my first few years, kind of figuring
Mhm.
out what my aesthetic was and how I interpreted and how I saw the photos, which I feel like very much set in and confident in now. And I think it's something that sets me apart from other photographers or something that attracts certain clients to me.
Mhm.
Because it all works out. There's different styles and different photographers for every couple or every client. And that's, the beauty of the photography space, I think.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, that was a lot to unpack. I think that your journey from, I think everyone goes into college expecting like they know what they're gonna do. Either they know what they're gonna do or like have no clue what they're gonna do. And the fact that you actually majored in photojournalism and you're able to apply that into, current day in your profession, I think that's awesome. Because like not many people can say that, right? Like that they're actually using their major in real
Right.
life. And the imposter syndrome, I totally get. Like when I sold my first gift box, I was like, "Are you sure you want to buy this? Because it's okay if you don't. Like you can tell me it's crappy." And then like
Yeah. Yeah.
now packing so many boxes, like you kind of learn like what works best for you and what you want your brand to stand for or your face and name to stand for. And I love that you were able to kind of like explore and evolve that throughout the past 6 years now, is that?
Yeah, I started
Yeah.
my business officially in 2017. So
Okay.
it'll be 5 years in February, which is
Oh my
wild.
gosh.
But
You
yeah,
need to
I
do
know.
something
But
big.
yeah, my 5 year biz birthday. We'll
Yeah.
figure it out. But yeah, I feel like, I mean, I've been taking photos forever, but officially since then, maybe a little bit before in 2016 when I was first starting to get into these paid gigs, I'll say, and kind of coming into that identity of oh, okay, I could really make this into something. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that kind of how you decided to make this like your full-time thing where you knew that people were resonating with what you were providing and so you're like, well, why not make this my actual gig?
Yeah, exactly. It sort of grew over time. More couples and clients were coming into my space and wanting photos. And I spent my first, I would say maybe 1 to 2 years in business, second shooting with other photographers that I really wanted to learn from and just sort of hone the skill. And then once I really came into my own and figured out, what my style was and how weddings work and if weddings were even something that I wanted to specialize in.
Hmm.
But I remember showing up to the very first wedding I ever shot, like, oh yeah, like this is where it's at for me. I love being a part of these insanely special days and having such a hand in capturing, this milestone
Hmm.
that that was the only thing I really wanted to focus on and spend my energy and attention to. And yeah, just being able to come alongside these couples, befriend them, build relationships, but also come alongside and make sure that they're taken care of when it comes to their wedding photos. And there's such a level of like passion and care and attention that comes along with it too. And I'm
Hmm.
super detail oriented and very organized. So that sort of just comes naturally to me. But when I'm doing this work and working with these couples and photographing their weddings, it doesn't feel like work to me. It feels like fun for me. So that's sort of when I realized that this is something that I just want to throw everything into and see where it goes. And it's been a great journey so far.
That's amazing. Did you find that when you first started like wedding photography that like what was I guess like could you walk me through the process of like a shortened version? Because I know it's like very in depth of like when you first meet with a client and then knowing if it's the right fit. Because I know one of my questions I always ask is there been any like client or order that you've had that you like just could not work with? Because I know I've had that in the past where I've just had to say no, not only because of bandwidth, but just because our vibe didn't mesh.
Mm-hmm.
Like what is that process for you on like kind of working with a potential client?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. I very much believe in ideal clients. I don't think that every client's meant for every vendor and vice
Mhm.
versa. So I'm happy that you asked. And I would say that my like condensed version of a client pipeline is when I receive an inquiry, I hop on an intro call with the couple and I want to hear about them, their love story, their wedding vision, their venue, and what they have in mind. And then I like to tell them about myself and my approach and what they can expect.
Mm.
And if I hear the words, like, we really want a light and airy wedding photographer, like, immediately, you are not
No.
going to be happy with what I'll provide. I am more than happy to send you to some folks who I think would be a great fit for that.
Mhm.
That doesn't happen so much just because of, my style and what's out there. That's sort
Mhm.
of an immediate kind of weed out, if you will, so that by the
Mhm.
time clients are coming, they're looking for a certain aesthetic.
Mhm.
But that is the biggest thing that comes across that's popping into my head now, where I can tell that what they're saying or what they're describing is just not what I do. So it's not a good fit, it's not a good match. But there are plenty of other photographers out there that would be, and I'm happy to pass the business to them. And normally they're a friend of mine, so it's always nice to pass business back and forth and then help each other out that way.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's definitely working with what works for you, because at the end of the day, like, you have to build that relationship, that repertoire, and it's such an intimate moment that having any kind of like discord or like funky feelings, I feel like would totally just bring that vibe down right on their special day.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It's all about the energy and the vibe and the match, really. And
Definitely.
I think it very much comes to a feeling on the couple side to feel like I can trust this person. This person's going to take care of me, and I feel good about this decision. And that's
Mhm.
also true on the vendor side too, to know that it's going to be a good match and an enjoyable working experience and something that, both sides are excited about and want to spend time and jump into together.
Sweet. I think that makes sense. And I know, like, when I get married in the future, I'll definitely have to find like the right photographer, because I can be a little all over the place, as you know.
Oh, it's important to like do your due diligence and talk to a lot of different photographers and have conversations and ask the questions that you have and just make sure that you know what you're getting. And also feel like you have a connection. And something I always say too to my couples is your wedding photographer is someone who pretty much spends the whole day with you from
Mhm.
start to end, and they're like with you. So you need to bring someone on that matches your personalities or that you would enjoy hanging out with and that you could see there with you throughout the day.
Mhm.
Where, your other vendors don't have such an intimate role
Mhm.
as a
Mhm.
photographer, a videographer, even a wedding planner. Those are the three I would say to really make sure the personalities match, because you just spend so much time together. And
That's
it's
so
really a part
true.
of the memory, like also.
Yeah, like if you have a photographer that you don't vibe with, and all you're gonna think about on your wedding day is just like, man, that photographer, I did not like that person.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't really separate it.
No,
I
like
don't think. Maybe some people can, but I couldn't.
I couldn't either. I used to do wedding planning, and it was like that whole planning session and process, and it was just,
I
that's
don't
why
think
I
I
don't.
knew that.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, yeah. I used to, I was a wedding planner intern like back in Hawaii. And so we would get a lot of destination weddings. Speaking of destinations, I need to ask you about that you just did, the one that you just did. But yeah, you
Yes.
would get like destination weddings, and or like people who had 200 to 300 people pre-COVID. This is like back in 2011. And it was like, you were so tired that day. Like, I don't know how you do back-to-back shoots. Like, how do you like navigate the multiple shoots that you do? Like, are there things that you do that like you can rest and relax, or you just kind of like adrenaline Friday through Sunday and then you kind of decompress
Oh
later?
my gosh. Yeah, I will say that this year has been an anomaly in the sense that it's been two seasons in one, and myself, along with so many other vendors, haven't exactly had the luxury to hold dates back.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not as much of like natural built-in self-care time, I would say, as I would in a normal season, because so many bookings from last year came into a full year that was already booked. But for me, I decided I didn't want to cancel any of my contracts or put my couples in a position to try and rebook their
Mm-hmm.
wedding photographer when it was such a densely booked time already.
Mm-hmm.
So this year in particular, I mean, there most of my weekends are double headers,
Mm-hmm.
but next year I'm being very specific with how many I'm taking per month and keeping time to myself to really rest and recharge. But
Mm-hmm.
um, for me, this year, the way I'm sort of making up for that time that I'm used to having that I don't have now is the weekends are like my work week essentially. Friday through Sunday mostly. I know this past
Mm-hmm.
Sunday I had a 14-hour day, which
Oh
was
my gosh.
just you're on your feet, you're using your brain, you're constantly thinking and reevaluating and doing, you're just so immersed and you're
Mm-hmm.
running on adrenaline and all of it's sort of running at once. And working a wedding day is unlike any feeling that I've experienced ever.
Yeah.
So that when I come home and it's over and all of that sort of like drains out of me, I I finally feel like the pain in my feet, in my back, from my cameras, in my backpack. And I'll do like massages every once in a while because I am
Good.
carrying so much gear
Yeah.
for hours that it really helps me to just like stay healthy and keep things in the best
Good.
places and positions. But yeah, I do that. I really like going to the nail salon. Like that's my happy place. So I'll do that. But I also I'm a morning person, so I like to work early and then kind of cut off around like 8 or 9 p.m. because that's what I have to do to get all these photos out the door this year and get all my couples their photos.
Mhm.
Um, and just sort of like shut the phone off, shut
Mm.
everything down, spend time with my husband, and just make sure that I'm building in time for personal things too. I do feel like I've sacrificed more this year than I would like to as far as like friends and family events
Mhm.
and milestones and things, but I know that this is a decision that I made and I want to prioritize my couples to be there with them. So I'm fine with it for this year.
Mhm.
Next year, gonna get that balance back a little bit more. Yeah, but something that I'm very kind of rigid about is I don't have email notifications on my phone. I don't have any of my social notifications on.
Oh.
I check my email once a day, mostly because I would never get to actually do the work that I'm hired to do,
Mhm.
which is to like edit and deliver the photos. So I very much am controlled in the way that I check social and my email, which I think is a version of self-care because you can get really
Mhm.
spun up in that stuff. Um, and stay present too. I leave my phone at home when I go out with Matt, my husband, like for dinner or drink or something because I just want to like be with him. And
Mhm.
the work is there, the work will be there. But so I can just sort of divide and um, allocate my attention in the right ways at the right times.
I love that. I think those are actually good lessons not only for your work, but in general is just, not turning on your social notifications or email notifications, leaving your phone at home once in a while. I know Ryan is always like, that thing is literally attached to your hand. It could be like another hand or something like,
Yeah, it's an
which
appendage.
it is. But no, those are great tips and advice for people who maybe are workaholics. I know I am. It sounds like you might be, and it's
Yeah.
like it's like good and bad, right? But then also getting like massages and nail salons. I should go to the nail salon. But just doing things that are self-care for you because it does sound like you have so much on your plate and like those long days. I was wondering, it was super random question, like what kind of shoes do you wear on your photo shoot?
Yeah, so I wear Cole-Haan like black sneakers. So
Nice.
they're like sharp looking but comfortable. Because
Yeah.
I've worn like boots and like flats before, but when you're on your feet for that long and you're walking and sometimes you don't really know where you're gonna be. Like for
Mm.
portraits, you might be like out in a field somewhere, but then you're coming into this like beautiful venue. So I needed a versatile shoe that I felt comfortable kind of wearing in multiple situations. So
Hmm.
think I have like 3 pairs of the same shoe and I just wear them and I have that on with like my black jumpsuit or whatever because it's an interesting topic like wedding photographer fashion because you want to look like you're dressed up for the wedding but you're moving like crazy and you're up and you're down and you're over and here and you have to be able to move
Hmm.
and I have an embarrassing story about that actually because
Do
one
tell.
wedding I was wearing like they weren't jeans, they were sort of like a black stiff dress pant material.
Hmm.
And I like bent down to like fluff a veil, and my pants just ripped like right
Oh,
up the back of my backside. I was
oh
like,
my
oh my
gosh.
gosh, I still have so much time left here. But luckily,
Oh
I had a
God.
sweater, literally pulled the 90s, like wrap it around and tie it around your waist situation.
Yeah.
But after that, I'm like, forget it. Athleisure all the way from here on out.
Oh my gosh. I cannot believe that happened. Well, first off, I'm so sorry that happened. And secondly, it's
It's
kind
funny now.
yeah. In the moment though, you're probably like, oh crap. Like, what
Oh
do I do?
yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. It's a good lesson. Good lesson. And I throw
Yes.
extra clothes in my car because you don't know.
Smart.
Always prepared.
Very smart. Okay, well, thanks for answering the shoe question. I was always curious, like, what do people wear on their feet? I think I used to wear athletic shoes, but sometimes those aren't even comfortable like on really long days because I don't think they're made for, long where it's more just like quick runs or working out.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
Kohan comfort shoes. Shout out to Kohan.
yeah.
Um,
Sponsor me.
Contract, yeah. But seriously though, when going back to some destination weddings, I know you had one recently. Do you want to share? Because I'm super happy that you were able to go there because it's my happy place. But yeah, I'd love to hear more.
I would love to talk about it. So, yeah, a couple who originally had a plan to come back to where the bride's family is here in New Jersey and have a wedding at their family's private estate. When COVID happened, they totally reworked their wedding plans and just decided to have a super intimate family only micro wedding where they live in
Mhm.
Oregon, specifically in Cannon Beach, which I remember when this was coming together last year, when they decided on the place, I had to read the email like 5 times, like pinch myself and think I'm actually going to shoot a wedding on the Oregon coast. This is wild and such a dream of mine. Yeah, so flew out there, packed my camera bag, checked everything 10 times to make sure I was bringing everything with me. Made my way out there with my husband. He came along to help and drove out, got an Airbnb the night before, and then woke up and met the bride and groom for getting ready and their first look. But the scenes that I was seeing and setting up the first looks on Cannon Beach with Haystack Rock in the
Mhm.
background and like the seagulls flying overhead and the mountainsides and the ocean, I still think it was all a dream. I can't believe it was actually real. And the couple actually invited us as guests and had our own little two-person table set up for us with name cards and everything at their event and ordered us meals.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that's not normal. It was just so cool to actually feel like a guest at that wedding at the same time, but still, obviously capturing everything, but just really feeling like a part of it. Because it was so small, we knew everybody's names and we're spending the whole day together and we all hugged when it was over.
Oh.
And it was unreal. But yeah, I could not get over the scenes. My favorite part was after dinner was over, pulling them onto the beach, Cannon Beach with Haystack Rock, and just letting them kind of like float and run and skip and jump and just be together and just sort of photographing them as they are together. And it was amazing. I'm still processing the incredibleness of that shoot, but it was neat that it's the farthest I've ever traveled for a wedding. So I felt extra pressure on, packing, making sure I had
Mm.
everything and being choiceful about what I was bringing along because I didn't want to go over any like weight limits or anything.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it was cool. Some part of it was a little unsettling to be a little bit out of my element.
Mhm.
Um, but I did so much research ahead of time. I talked to my other photographer friends who live and shoot out there constantly to put like a really
Good.
great location list together, timeline together, um, to ensure that I was giving them the absolute best experience and service that I could offer them.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, they loved it. I loved it. It was good all around.
That's amazing. I can totally envision you taking photos in front of Haystack Rock. It's such an iconic piece of Cannon Beach, and the fact that like I feel like it also fits your aesthetic too.
Yeah, it
Of that
did.
like yeah, like darker, not but like the fog and like just all
Yeah,
the serene like clouds and the beach. Oh, that
for
was
sure.
I love seeing those photos. They were beautiful.
Thank you. I know, I was so excited. It was really cool, but something I'll never forget for sure.
Have there been other places that you've traveled to for destination weddings, or is it mostly in Jersey and New York?
Yeah, not quite as far as Oregon. I have been like upstate New York, which is probably the next farthest, like a 4 or 5 hour drive, but that's
Hmm.
pretty common around here to make your way up there when you're closer to the city. But it feels like another world when you're up there because it's just quiet and
Mm.
serene and picturesque and very woodsy and lots of nature, which is beautiful. I always like getting up there, but just have to factor in the drive. I shot my
Hmm.
first Connecticut wedding this summer, actually, which
Oh,
was beautiful, right on the water. But again, just another road trip, which I like. I put my podcasts in and just
yeah.
kind of like have my me time. But I do like to bring Matt along whenever he's available. That was something that was really cool about the Oregon wedding. He was literally my assistant for the day, like helping me lay out the detail shots and checking off the timeline and calling family names for family portraits. Like he was there, and I couldn't have done it without him either. So it's always
That's
nice to have him.
awesome. Do you mind expanding more on just like having, I know it's not necessarily business focused, but like having somebody who, like having a partner who is so supportive in that sense? Like I know for myself, Ryan, he helps me with everything in terms of like setting up booths or moving equipment or like even staying at my booth and keeping me in a good mood or like packing. We stayed until like 8 o'clock last night packing boxes. Um, like, how does that dynamic work between you two?
Yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, if he wasn't as supportive and incredible as he is, like our relationship just would not work. Like there's no
Hmm.
way.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because whenever we first started dating, this was just a little thing, and it's really grown throughout our time together too. So he's sort of been along for that and has watched it, which I'm sure is similar for you and
Hmm.
Ryan. But uh, yeah, I mean, he gets a front row seat to everything that's happening. He sees how hard I'm working, how much work there is, how long I'm spending on edits and gallery deliveries, early mornings, late nights, full
Hmm.
weekends. And with that, our schedules are sort of opposite, where we're very much passing ships in the night. So when we
Hmm.
get, an hour that overlaps together, we definitely take advantage of it. And that's where like the no phone things come into play. But
Hmm.
when I really need help or I really need him, and knowing that I can ask him for anything and that he's willing to jump in honestly means the world. And I tell him every single day like how grateful I am for that type of support. And it's, the big things and also the little things. For example, when I was up at a upstate wedding in September, I had to drive back that Friday night after the wedding to start a wedding here in Hoboken at I think 9:30 on Saturday morning, and it's a
Oh,
5-hour drive.
oh
So
wow.
he basically came with me to make the drive through the night so that I could sleep and then
Oh my
still
gosh.
show up for the next wedding the next day. And again, I wouldn't have normally scheduled things like this, but because of the backlog and having to fit things in, it's just the
Hmm.
way it worked out. So that, but also when I'm driving back late, our car, we park it about like a 15-minute walk away from our apartment building.
Hmm.
And when it's late, like past midnight, I just don't love like walking
Hmm.
alone and bringing all my expensive
Yeah.
backpacks and things with me through town. So I'll like drive to our apartment. I'll come up, he'll come down, and then like go park the car. Just like small things
Oh.
like that. Or even just being able to bounce business ideas off of him. Like he's a business development manager
Mm.
working on huge brands in the CPG space, and he does like pricing and analytics for a living.
Hmm.
So when I'm thinking about, my pricing structure and what my services and my time are worth and how much I want to book or not book and, what the income goal is, it's an interesting dynamic because he can come at it from a very analytical and mathematical standpoint, but it also affects him because we're married.
Yeah.
So it's like our lifestyle and everything. But so it's good. It's a good balance, but he never like makes me feel bad for not having as much time as I would like to have with him. And we have
Hmm.
a roadway like to get back to what we're used to,
Hmm.
because I do feel like in this like COVID era that he's not getting exactly what he signed up for in our
Hmm.
relationship, and I'm constantly battling that personally and mentally.
Hmm.
But it's just right now a matter of like physical hours in the day to
Yeah.
get a lot of work done in a timely manner and then
Hmm.
come out of that, and I'm going to feel like so good. I have to figure out what I'm going to do when all these weddings are delivered from this year, but coming into next year and kind of getting that like work life balance back in check, if you will.
Hmm.
And I don't want to sound like, I'm complaining about the work or anything. It's just been unlike anything this
Yeah.
year. And I think a lot of people know and feel that. And I'm so grateful for it and to be invited
Hmm.
into these weddings and love stories. And I'm so grateful for my couples who have understood and have given me patience and extra time to
Hmm.
deliver images that I feel good about and that they can
Yeah.
cherish and have for the rest of their lives.
Hmm.
Because I take this so seriously and
Yeah.
I want to give them the absolute best that they deserve. So Just want to make sure I'm coming off the right way.
Definitely. I think that we all, at the end of the day, are human beings, right? And we all, outside of our exterior veneer of, hey, this is what I do for a living. I'm great. You're grateful for your clients and all of the amazing opportunities that you've had. We're all humans and we all have points where we like, we have to balance our own life, right? Like, and I think people, especially with COVID, during the time of COVID, are more understanding of your situation, your mental health priorities, and things that you need to do. And I think that if anything that comes out of this COVID period, it's like people, hopefully, at least like in my experience, are more sympathetic and like understanding of everyone's situation. So you did not sound ungrateful at all. I think that you're just a human being at the end of the day. And I know that we are all just kind of trying to get through this time right now and then
Yeah,
hopefully find some normalcy next year. Fingers crossed. um,
exactly.
yeah, I was curious, as you've gone through your journey, which it sounds incredible, and I'm so happy for the opportunities that you had. Um, is there a piece of advice that you would give somebody, not necessarily in the photography world, but just in general, who's starting out, well, maybe, yeah, in the photography world, who's starting out their own business? Like, is there something you would tell that person just starting out? And is there a piece of advice that you have for somebody who's like in the grind like you are, just trying to get through the days?
Yeah, sure. So for someone who's just starting out in photos in particular, I would say don't compare yourself to other photographers and focus on what your art looks like and what you see and how you want the images that you take to translate and ultimately be for, the couples or clients that you work with. When I started, I was very much trying to match other people's looks and put a lot of pressure on myself to be something that always sort of felt off.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up going to a workshop, and it was such a mind opener for me because I really realized that my work and my photos, my art could be anything that I wanted it to be. And that is what I would say, is that your photos and your art can be anything you want it to be. And you are unique and can offer something unique compared to any other photographer that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that will ultimately be what attracts your clients to you. And it becomes a really beautiful thing. So just giving yourself space and grace and time to just figure that out and not put too much pressure
Mm-hmm.
on yourself or compare yourself too closely to other photographers.
Yeah.
It's good for inspiration, of course, but not to the point where it's like, I have to do this, I have to do that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And for wedding vendors who are in this wild, wild wedding season and coming out on the other side of it, I say to myself every morning that I'm doing a good job. Whatever gets done or is left undone is okay. There's tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And to really set boundaries for yourself
Mm-hmm.
to respect and honor your mental health state. For
Mm-hmm.
me, that's, no email or social notifications, no phone after a certain point at night. Walking to my favorite coffee shop for an afternoon coffee just to get some air and a little bit of a break because I'm spending ungodly amounts of time looking at screens lately.
Yeah.
My blue light glasses are really
Yeah.
coming in handy these days. So yeah, just boundaries and honoring what you need to keep your mental health in check.
I love that. It's really important to have your own time and set those boundaries. I think there's a book called Boundaries that I read a while back, and it just kind of goes through the process of like how to get there, why to say no, and being comfortable and okay with being uncomfortable. Like in that sense,
Exactly.
because I think most people always like we're people pleasers, at least like I am. And I think like I have a hard time saying no to people, like, or especially friends, when you're running this business, people or your friends or family are like, hey, let's hang out, hey, let's do this. And like sometimes they don't understand, sometimes they do. But really just finding those boundaries, even within work, of saying like, look, I need to cut certain things off. It's okay to do that and like be confident in it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Because, every no is a yes to something else. And that can be whether work you're saying no to take time for personal things, or personal things you're saying no to say yes to work things. It goes both ways. But ultimately, like, you have to feel confident and secure and good about the decisions that you're making in your business life and your personal life. And that's a hard balance to strike. I think it's always ebbing and flowing and
Mm-hmm.
constantly learning about what that is. But it's part of the beauty of the journey, and exciting for sure.
It is. I know we're coming up on time, but I just wanted to ask a couple more questions. Throughout your entire journey of being a photographer, has there been like one outstanding awesome sauce moment? I say awesome sauce a lot, and so I always ask people like it can be one of many, right? Like we've all had kind of great peaks in our business. But is there an awesome sauce moment that you can think of that you're open to sharing?
Yeah, picking one is really tough. I think like the awesome sauce moments that I love and live for, and what reminds me of why I do this, is when I deliver the photos and the couple comes back, and their reaction and how thankful they are and how much they love them and how much of a high I get from that. Or even at the end of the night when I'm saying goodbye and they're
Mm.
like genuinely sad to see me leave, and they're just so profusely like thanking and, just being so great. And that means so much from my side, because you put so much work and energy and love and blood, sweat, and tears into these weddings, that to hear it back from the couples is just incredible, a thousandfold. Um, but also something coming to my mind, and it's kind of like sad-ish, but I think important, where I've had couples recently lose parents, and
Mm.
they come back to me and they say, I'm so happy that I have these photos of
Oh,
myself and my parent or whoever.
yeah.
And I have found myself just like sitting and looking at those types of emails, like reading them over and over again, obviously feeling like so sad for them, but this mix of emotions where I feel so much purpose in having been
Mm.
able to be there and
Yeah.
capture those for them. So it just we get deep and we get close,
Oh,
and
definitely.
it's yeah, so it's really
Yeah.
beautiful, and I would say that that's one of the best parts about being in this industry, is to capture those moments that are huge, huge memories for people.
Oh man, you made me tear up, Devin. No,
I didn't
it's
mean to
good.
make you
Like
cry.
I was like, oh, parents tug at the heartstring. No, I think that that's actually really important. I didn't even think about that. Like capturing moments that'll last a lifetime. With people you've lost or whatever during this period or like any period. Super important. So I appreciate that. Is there anything exciting that is coming up for you or like that you're really looking forward to?
Yeah, I think the first thing that came to mind is I'm shooting my first New Year's Eve wedding this December. So like I'm really excited
Ooh,
for that. I think it's going to be, like great energy and just a fun thing to be there for when the ball drops. And the venue is like right across the Hudson from New York City here in Hoboken. So that's going to be like such a fun place to be. But I'm excited for that. And yeah, I think just sort of being able to put a bow on this year, and really just keep it as a huge accomplishment, and also just a huge piece of my business life that I'm so thankful for, and all the couples that I've gotten to work with this year and who've invited me into their days and have trusted me to tell their stories. So I'll never be able to thank them enough. So yeah, so
I love
excited.
that. Oh, well, hey, is there anything, how can people find you if they want to contact you?
Sure. So I am on Instagram posting my latest work at Mile Square Moments. That's my handle. And if you want to see more, I post weekly blogs of weddings that I have worked on and finished on my blog on my website, milesquaremoments.com. And you can also submit inquiries through my website as well. That's the
Excellent.
best way
Thank you.
to actually get in touch if you're interested in booking.
Yay. Oh, I love that. Okay, well, everyone, make sure to find Devin on Mile Square Moments on Instagram, on her website. Thank you so much, Devin, for joining me today. I really appreciated our
Of
conversation,
course.
and I'm so thankful for our friendship. So,
Me
thank you.
too. Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
Yay. Oh, thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll see you next
Yes.
time.
Okay, thank you.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.